Go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. If everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please go ahead and call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Motney,
Here.
Councilmember Emig,
Present.
Councilmember Becker,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Crumpler,
Here.
Mayor Millawamble.
Thank you. Here. Our next item on the agenda is recognitions and appointments, starting with item 5A, recognition new police chief Jamal Symington, as requested by the administration department. I do, before I turn it over to City Manager Gleason, I do have a couple of comments that I wanted to make and say to Chief Symington on behalf of the City of Bloomington and its residents. I want to welcome you in this new role. I don't know that there's ever a perfect time to step into the police chief position, given the nature of the business, but we are certainly appreciative of you choosing us as a city. Although I know that you live here, you've lived here for quite a while, but I understand that you had a number of different options and you could have chosen to be elsewhere. So we're definitely honored and humbled that you chose to be the police chief in Bloomington. I've also noted your availability already to elected officials and to residents as well. I have seen you out and about in a couple of events. I've heard of the things you've said in the media, and I definitely appreciate your availability. It shows us that we definitely made the right choice in choosing you as a police chief. So thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Gleason, who also has some comments to make.
Thank you, Mayor. And welcome, Jamal, Chief Symington. I think the community knows that the chief had a 23-year career with the Illinois State Police. Prior to that, served at the local level with Kankakee County. And but within the state police, he had the hard rank of colonel and was the deputy director for the organization. The mayor said it perfectly. Chief Symington had choices, had options, and he chose us. This is his community, and very glad that he's on board. He steps into a great situation with the Bloomington Police Department, and very excited about the future. I want to give the floor to you, Chief, and real quick for the community. We're doing it this way because the chief was actually sworn in by the city clerk on October 1st, his very first day on the job, but did not want to forego an opportunity to present to the community, recognize this very important placement. And Chief, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Gleason. Mayor, City Manager, Deputy City Manager, City Council, thanks for this great opportunity for me to join the team of dedicated, professional, and selfless servants who make up the Bloomington Police Department. I humbly accept this position as the police chief for the city of Bloomington. I look forward to improving upon the great work the police department does while serving its community members. I am excited to work on behalf of this great city and police department and with the city's stakeholders to problem solve collaboratively in an effort to improve public safety and enhance the quality of life. This son of a father who served this nation in the Vietnam War in the United States Army and lost his life at the hands of an armed gunman in 1975, certainly understands the impact of violent crime. And it went unsolved, by the way. That experience has been woven into my fabric, a high level of dedication to duty, and the importance of due diligence while serving the community in the capacity of a law enforcement officer. I will give my very best to this agency and this community, as well as the men and women of the police department, to serve with determination, excellence, and a vision of accountability, collaboration, and engagement. I am forever grateful for the opportunity to serve in the most noble of professions, and I'm looking forward to expanding the trust and community engagement as this agency seeks to be a premier city police department in Central Illinois. Lastly, I want to give thanks to my children, Corey, Miles, and Jay, who cannot be here tonight. Certainly my family, my father's 3 sisters who are here, Miriam Bailey, Dora Symington, and Phyllis Symington, my sisters, my brothers, my friends, as well as Stacy Luster, my significant other, for the unwavering support over the years, today, and well into the future. I also want to express appreciation for all of those who support the men and women who serve in law enforcement. It is your steadfast support which encourages us and allows us to sustain the passion of service, which is the reason we entered into this occupation. Thanks again. I appreciate it, and I look forward to the opportunity of engagement and making a difference.
Thank you very much, Chief Symington. We look forward to the great work you'll do with our great police department. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Our next item on the agenda is recognition of appointments to various boards and commissions as requested by the administration department. Madam Clerk.
We recognize Vivian DeTora to the Human Relations Commission, Rachel McFarland to the Public Safety and Community Relations Board, and Joseph Blaney to Transportation Commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do. We actually have a pretty full load, so I would just ask that everyone keep their comments precise so that we can try and get through everyone. I think we're at 12. We do have first up will be Chris Collins in person, and you can have your statement.
Okay, sure. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased. Thank you. You may go ahead, Chris.
Hi, thank you, Mayor. My name is Chris Collins, and I'm the founder of a 501c3 charity here in Bloomington called HOPE. Stands for Housing Our People Everywhere. And we got a problem with our homeless people happen to be out here in the winters. We launched Operation Safe Winter. And I've been trying to actually get a meeting with the mayor and Tim and Billy, and I haven't got a response. So I showed up here today to at least get my comment across that I would like to have a meeting and do a presentation to show you what we put together for Bloomington Normal. But Operation Safe Winter, I own 2.5 acres here in town, and I'm going to build 100 temporary structures on it for the winter. And I'm gonna make sure there's nobody walking the street and having to be stuck outside in the cold. Every day at 8 o'clock, they get thrown out. We need to stop this. Our cities, businesses have stepped up and partnered with us. And if every person says they're a Hope supporter, when you spend money to over 600 businesses in this community, they'll donate up to 20% of what you spend every day. It's pretty easy. Not asking people to get involved any other way than to just support what we are doing. But I also partnered with our electric and gas companies, and at no cost to any resident in Bloomington Normal, you can donate 20% of what you spend on your electric and gas every month by engaging in our website and putting your account number there. No credit card number, just pay your bill next month and it'll change. Also AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Frontier Internet. These are all bills people pay. Not asking them to go get one. I'm just asking you to open your eyes and realize what's going on in your city. And the city's bills can do it. The county's bills can do it. Your home bills can do it. And the difference is will you do it? It's called a $0 donation. We do need your support on that. I'm wanting to do a project down on where the Mennonite Hospital was and the Coachman Motel. I've already met with city development. They told me I need to meet with you guys because there's 35 acres at the edge of town. We want to annex that into the city so that we can build homes down there and make affordable housing. We've had an issue since 15,000 of our properties went out to Rivian and their employees. We had a bunch of people that profited here in this city by getting a year's worth of payments 3 times the amount. And it put a damper on what we got for affordable housing. I've got a machine that produces 120 feet of material a minute. That's 1,500 square foot frames a day. I've got an agreement with Mark that owns the GE building. I'd like to have it put into the TIF district. And we'd like to create a factory out there that'll put 1,000 people to work and start a youth program. Is that my 3 minutes?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Next.
Next up, we have Gary Lambert.
Good evening. Trust you all had a good Columbus Day. I think we're starting to see, not starting, but we are seeing the effect of our taxation policy in building up our excess surplus funds. We will have no limit to the amount of projects that well-meaning individuals would like to fund, giving money quite often to private individuals. There's 2 on the agenda for tonight, if I read it correctly. One is being deferred for a couple of weeks. The other, if I read it right, will give money, grants to individuals in the downtown district. Noble idea. But if I understand it correctly, those are improvements that go to the benefit of the owner of that property. When he goes to sell that property, could be the next day after he makes the improvements, he keeps the benefit. If the council has their mind set on that, I would suggest that they put a lien on the property. And at the first time the property changes hands, have that money returned back to the coffers of the city. Just remember that every dollar that you give to a private individual is a dollar you have taken from the pockets of many individuals who never see downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next.
Next up, we have Zachary Gittridge.
Hello, honored and esteemed city council members. I just wanted to talk about the open Ward 6 seat. I heard that the mayor was thinking about putting in, what's the word I'm looking for? A loser for that position. And I think that that is not a good idea. It's fundamentally undemocratic. I want to kind of put in perspective what the 2019 race did. Correct, Karen has won, you know, she was there for like 20 years. In 2015, when she won her election unopposed, the voter turnout specifically for those who voted for the ward was 1%. In 2011, when she ran against, I don't remember his name, somebody insignificant, and she won by like 95% of the vote, the voter turnout for the people that voted in for her race was 3%. In 2019, when she lost to Jen Carrillo, regardless of what you think of Jen Carrillo, the voter turnout was 14.83%, specifically for the ward race. And the total voter turnout for that entire ward was 14.84%. So a lot of the ward actually did get to decide. And you're correct, it was still very close by 42 votes. But as some wise character that Vin Diesel once played said, doesn't matter whether you lose by an inch or a mile, losing is losing. You clearly have a majority, and you can pick somebody that's not like one of the mayor's personal friends that helped out on his campaign, probably contributed to it, et cetera, et cetera. It just seems like abject nepotism. I think the times of Karen Schmidt should be over, maybe forever. And I would like to remind the mayor that back when he lost his appointment race, Karen Schmidt was one of the people that voted against you, in case you forgot. And then you had to go run. So pick one of the people that actually did the literal like minimum amount of work of putting the application in and actually meeting with you. Pick one of those people. Pick the person that you have the majority of. And I just want to end it by saying Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang Clan is forever. Wu-Tang is for the children. Wu-Tang stands for witty, unpredictable talent and natural game. This is for the nation of the gods and the earth, and every devil ain't pale. Thank you. I cede my time.
Thank you, Zach. Next.
Next up, we have Luisa Gomez.
Evening, council members and mayor. If I can have a moment, I have a friend that has a few handouts that I would like to share with you all. It's some statistics that are directly drawn from community health needs assessment, which I have the honor of work.
Sorry,
Yes.
excuse me. Could you pass them to the clerk? Yes. And
Okay,
she'll
anyways,
give it-
this is data directly drawn from the Community Health Needs Assessment from 2019. I'm currently the Health Promotion Manager at the McLean County Health Department, and one of my duties is to be on the steering committee of this when we collect data. In this data that I highlighted, it talks about the racial disparities in 61701. I'm not going to elaborate on that a lot. The data speaks for itself, and then later on, I will explain to you why that is relevant. So I'd like to say, first off, thank you for letting me have this opportunity. I want to talk about my process of going through this candidacy and submitting my application. I submitted my application before the deadline as requested. I was not contacted to even be known if my information had been received until my name was printed in the pantograph. To me, I found that to be highly unprofessional because usually you have a conversation with people to let them know, first and foremost, I received your information before you publicly make it aware. But you know what? I moved on and I progressed. I had an interview with the mayor. I felt like it went very well. I explained myself for Ward 6. I explained who I am. I did all of that. I went on vacation. When I was on vacation, I was asked to complete an affidavit that I could hold this position. I took time away from my family to go to UPS, to get it notarized, to get it scanned, and to get it emailed in. I did every single step, but how can you win a race when the rules change? How can you win when the goalpost is constantly moved? We put in our applications at the desired deadline that was set for us, but then we were told it was extended for others. Now we're told that someone else who did not follow the procedures is being considered. And to me that's, how do you win? But I'm gonna be really quick. Right now, I want to talk about what I do. Last night, I had a situation where two 11-year-old girls decided to come into my house and steal belongings from my daughter. They snuck in through the dining room window. At 12:30 last night, I ran barefoot in sweatpants and a tank top to find those little girls. I didn't call the police. I went to their mother's house and I talked to them. And you know what we did? We came up with a plan of talking about how those things could be detrimental, how they could have ended up in the system, how things could have went so wrong. And you know what? My neighbor is Nikita Richards, and we've been talking about how we can come together in that neighborhood to be able to meet the needs of these girls. When I think of a person that is a city council member, I think about that. I don't want someone sitting up there who makes decisions, who doesn't understand that. I want someone who's going to run in the streets barefoot at night to be able to talk to little girls. Thank you for your time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lisa.
Next up, we
Excuse
have,
me.
oh, sorry.
That's not allowed. Thank you.
Next up, we have Coretta Jackson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The last time I was here, I spoke with you all. I was a disgruntled resident and we were discussing the flood. I spoke with you and we spoke specifically numbers because we have lots of business savvy people on the council who understand numbers and they resonate. I am grateful that the discussion around the floods have made some sort of forward progress. You all will be receiving my application for assistance tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. But what I want to kind of speak about is the fact that when I spoke to you before, I called the West Side, particularly Ward 6 and 7, the redheaded stepchild of the city of Bloomington. No one has yet to correct me, and the actions of the council is kind of driving the nail in the coffin of that statement. And I say that because the current state of the council is not representative of Bloomington. I'm going to point out that there's an empty seat right there. It's been an empty seat for quite some time, but there have been decisions made about infrastructure. There have been decisions made about flood relief. There have been votes made about numerous things, including Mr. Gleason's race, without representation of Ward 6. I don't know how ethically and morally you all feel about that, about making decisions. Everybody screams the theme of we're making decisions to better the city of Bloomington as a whole. Right now, Ward 6 is not a part of our city because that seat is empty. There have been many decisions made in this room over the past several weeks that do not include the voices of the people of Ward 6. They do not include those people. Again, it is a redheaded stepchild, the forgotten about part of the city. So in honor of Mercury's retrograde, I'm going to pretend to be the city council's bitter ex, and I'm going to bring up some old stuff. I'm going to bring up old stuff like the big empty lot on Market Street that I sit on my porch and look at every morning, where my neighbors still think we're going to get a grocery store where we can get fresh produce that's not once a week from the Veggie Oasis or from a food bank with an expiration date 6 months prior to someone receiving the food. We want and we need that grocery store. That has not been discussed in, I can't even remember the last meeting I went to. It probably was nearly a year ago. The residents of Ward 7 deserve to know, are we gonna move forward with the plan? Are we gonna be sitting and looking at an empty, ugly lot that needs mowing very frequently on our beautiful gateway to the city? There's so many things that are left out of the West Side. And I have 10 seconds to have you all utilize Mercury's retrograde. Bad things are happening. Old things are being brought up. It's a time for reflection. So reflect on the decisions that you're making right now without representation of a big sector of your city.
Thank you, Coretta. Next.
All right, next up, we have Janae Clark, and she should be online. Janae, if you can push *6 to begin speaking, please.
Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Hi. Hello and happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm speaking today regarding the appointment of the Ward 6 seat. And I just want to point out that this isn't about who the mayor likes or who the council likes or who this appointment makes most comfortable. What this appointment should be about is continuing with what the voters democratically elected. And this is what I have promised to do. I just want to invite every member of this council to contact me and let's talk about it. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Janae. Next.
Next up, we have William Guffiston.
How many drink coffee, tea, or a green drink in the morning? I was going to get a cup, but I couldn't find a cup. But anyway, the rain and the leaves right now, probably many of you don't understand. Remember the percolator coffee pots where they show up. Well, anyway, there's percolation going on right now. The rain falls down, the leaves fall down. And so Mother Nature is making, I call it leaf tea, leaf tea for a new term. Anyway, I'm praying that this 3-minute talk can maybe yield the city of Bloomington $500,000 each year. Every year, the city of Bloomington and the town of Norwell, we send out vacuum cleaners, we send out street sweepers to pull the leaves from the curb into the truck, haul them away. Our leaves trash, did God, obviously God made the leaves for a different benefit than hauling them away with money to city councils or whatever. So anyway, my appeal to you is that this 3-minute talk may think of the long run of the benefit of the leaves, and collectively, the city of Bloomington, if you convince the city people, kids included, to rake the leaves out of the street into the curb. But there's been a lot of studies, mulch, everybody's got a lawnmower. To mulch the leaves, the mulch is going to reintegrate with the soil and the grass. It's not going to kill the grass. Some people say, well, it's going to kill the grass. It's kind of, well, have you ever laid under the shade of a blade of grass when it's 100 degrees out? No, you lay under the shade of the tree. Anyway, so the drip line underneath the tree is ideally the mulch area where all these leaves fall. But anyway, they blow around. But ideally, we should mulch them and keep them on the property is my point. So again, going back to $500,000, if you multiply that over 10 years, so it's like, millions of dollars that we spent doing something that we didn't do previously. So I wanted to start out. I'm kind of rambling on here, kind of nervous here. Blooming Grove, where art thou? Remember Blooming Grove? Blooming Grove is what Bloomington was called initially. So we all know about Funk's Grove. So what if the city sent, for 3 weeks, sent trucks and vacuum cleaners out to Funk's Grove to pick up leaves and say, hey, we're going to take these away and bring them back here. No, that's wrong. So the point again is, I'd like to encourage everybody to mulch and again, do some reverse spending for the city of Bloomington and use that money to put into new tree programs for the streets. The city used to have a program where you could, they would come out and plant a tree in a parkway. And I don't think they've been doing that for years. I think the funds have been depleted. So anyway, again, this could be a reverse spending project to where if collectively the city of Bloomington were educated and realized that leaves have a benefit, it's going to benefit the city in the long run. Thank you for your time. I was at the library. I asked for a 3rd or 4th grade
Thank
book,
you.
and so it shows a nitrogen cycle. So kids learn about the nitrogen cycle, how things come down.
Okay.
What goes up comes down. Anyway,
Thank you, thank
3rd
you,
and
thank
4th
you.
graders are learning about this, but then they come
Appreciate it.
home and say, break the leaves out to the street. Anyway, that's my point.
Excuse me. Your time is up.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next.
Next up online, we have Olivia Butts. Olivia, if you'll press *6.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Butts, and I would like to relay my concerns tonight around two different issues. First and foremost, as an alum and current professor at Illinois State University, I implore you to take action to hold the Bloomington Police Department accountable for the mishandling of the Jelani Day case. As a part of the ISU community, I attended Jelani's memorial service at ISU last week, and we listened to the pleas of his mother, Carmen Bolden Day, a mother who to this day has no idea what happened to her son. As a community grieves, it is up to you to hold the Bloomington Police Department accountable for their inaction and to push them to utilize their resources to find out what happened to Jelani. In a broader sense, how can we continually say that the Bloomington Normal community is a safe place to live when Black and brown people are 6 times more likely to get pulled over, and when a young Black graduate student can go missing without any leads or suspects? I find it hard to explain to my students of color that Bloomington Normal and its surrounding towns and areas are a safe place for them to live, work, and go to school. While I understand that it is not on you all as a council, I don't believe that you have exhausted your resources and power to help the Day family. Secondly, I would like to address the filling of the Ward 6 seat. I find it odd that the mayor is interested in finding the, quote, broadest amount of consensus among council, Ward 6 residents, and the community, unquote, when the seat isn't representing anyone on the council or in any other ward. I was recently notified that Mayor Mwambe was considering filling the seat with Karen Schmidt, which is outrageous, considering not only did she lose the last election, but she was not amongst the 11 who applied to fill the seat once Carrillo vacated. I'm honestly shocked that the mayor would use his power to put forward a candidate and a friend of his for this seat when there were so many other options. As the mayor lives in Ward 3, I'm not sure how he would know what is the best fit for Ward 6, but nominating someone who didn't even run for the vacancy is certainly an overreach of power. Finally, but something that I find very important and telling, is that Ward 6 is a ward that Mboka actually lost in the last election. Of the 5 precincts in Ward 6, 2 went to Straza, 2 went to Gunderson, and 1 to Mwambe, which he won by 1 vote. So while there are a variety of reasons that Mboka shouldn't be speaking on behalf of the ward, this in particular stands out to me. I hope to hear other council folks speaking out against this overreach of power and seeing someone who applied for the position get this spot. I noticed that there were 2 people, 1 in person and 1 over the phone, who applied for this position here tonight, and it would be great to see them be able to take steps to filling that vacancy for Ward 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Next.
Next, also online, we have Matthew Tosco.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Matt Tosco, and I'd like to speak to the Ward 6 appointment process. The people of Ward 6 freely and fairly made their electoral choice in 2019. The vacancy is not because of any type of democratic process, a recall or whatnot. Therefore, the vacancy should, as seamlessly as possible, continue the exact type of representation that the people of Ward 6 elected in the last election. That goes for ideology, that goes for style and methods. You should pick from the field of applicants the applicant who most seamlessly will continue that representation through the end of the term in 2023. Now, the only collaboration, the only consensus that should be going on between members of the council and the mayor who are not from Ward 6 should be discussions about who best fits that role. Not your own bias, not your own agenda, not your own political stances or likes or whatever. No, your one job is to seamlessly continue the representation that Ward 6 elected in 2019. Now, some people will say, you know, by electing the mayor, you give the mayor the right to use his mayoral powers however he wants. and I say that there's a line that you don't cross there. Those powers must be used responsibly and appropriately. And the only way to do that in this case is to, as seamlessly as possible, continue the representation that Ward 6 elected in 2019. None of you other council members are from Ward 6. The mayor's not from Ward 6. People of Ward 6 will have a chance to elect different representation in 2023. Anyway, this whole process and what I've seen is incredibly concerning. It seems like a usurpation of the will of the voters by an inner cabal of people with their own ideas about who should represent that ward, and that's just not right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Next.
Next up, we have D. Urban.
Good evening, council, city manager, and everyone. We're so glad you're here. My name is Dee Urban. I live, work, and play in Ward 6. And when I say work, I actually work very hard as I own a small business in the warehouse district of Ward 6. And on tonight's agenda, you have the opportunity to vote either in favor or against allowing a Rust fund to provide financing to businesses that must become ADA compliant. Please understand, for business owners and especially small business owners like myself, this is not optional. I don't get the decision to say, no, I don't think I'm going to become ADA compliant, because the fines for not becoming ADA compliant are astronomical. So as a small business owner, I'm looking at you and saying, please offer some relief to some of us small business owners in downtown Bloomington and warehouse district all across this area, because not only do we have to become ADA compliant, please remember, we're also struggling to keep our business doors open after being and experiencing this COVID pandemic. That isn't really over, it's still continuing. You know, we are no longer living as a business owner paycheck to paycheck. We're counting our pennies to make sure we're meeting the rent. And costs to become ADA compliant can reach excesses of $150,000. Coming off of a COVID pandemic and asking me to come up with $150,000 to become ADA compliant or pay $250,000 in fines. So I'm asking you as a business owner and as a resident to seriously consider saying yes tonight to Rust grant funding for ADA compliance in our downtown and our Bloomington businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dee. Next.
Last up, we have Damon Lewis.
Greetings. Is my timer adjusted? Thank you. I just wanted to say I am so disappointed. First, let me introduce myself. I'm a senior at ISU. I'm Jamon Lewis. I am an organizational leadership communication major. I work at the school. I am from Bolingbrook. I'm not even from here, right? And I transferred in 2019. And I am so disappointed in the depravity with which Black lives are treated here. And in particular, the Jelani Day case, it's sad because I shouldn't even have to be here, really. The mom should not have to beg the public to push government officials to tell the FBI to get involved in what most likely, not even most likely, what is at this case a murder investigation, or what should be a murder investigation. Like, that should make everybody in this room a little bit sick to their stomachs, that she just came to ISU. And I don't remember seeing any of you all there to be at the memorial for Jelani Day. And he was last seen, to the best of our knowledge, in this city, right? Like, it's just disgusting to me that, you know, it seems like you all are better at managing crises than actually caring about human life. You know what I'm saying? And I know how weird this case looks, and I know, like, there's stuff I don't know, and there's stuff that has to be kept close to the vest. And I know there's some misinformation surrounding this case. We know that's what's going on, but we have to think about, like, wow, somebody really probably got lynched just 60 miles from here in a sundown town, and we're still masquerading like this town is safe for Black folk to live in, right? Like if this happened in 1955, like if he was Emmett Till, would y'all still feel like, man, I mean, we should still be having city council meetings, like we should still just not be doing anything. We should just be appointing one officer to work on a case of a missing student who was missing on August 25th, 26th, and his body's recovered September 4th, and then we don't have a positive identification until the 19th. Like, what are we doing here? He's gone. He's not gonna come back. Like, nobody's going to make this unhappen. Like, put some pressure on the FBI, like black man to black man, bro. Like, please, we are begging you. The mom is begging you. I am begging you. And I know you probably don't care because you have a political platform and elections to win, right? Like, let's just be real here. Y'all got money to make, you know, donors to please, probably investors to please. In life, it just isn't that high on the totem pole for you, but please, give the FBI a call, give Governor Pritzker a call if you have to, and demand that this be investigated as a murder, because that's what it is. He was lynched. And let's get him some justice. Let's find out who did this so I can go to sleep at night and be like, I probably don't have a murderer living in the town that I live at, right? Or he might not live here, but he's pretty close, pretty damn close. Like, it just makes you all honestly a damn shame, and you a damn shame in particular. Do better. And it sounds like this is pretty authoritative right now. So like, do better at Ward 6, do better across the board, and please just be a better person.
Thank you. Next.
So we are through public comment. However, Trevin Gaffney had registered to provide remote comment, and he's not available online. So just wanted to read that. And then I did have a variety of emailed public comments from Erica Larkin, Ricky Lee Beneke, Katie Eckhoff, and Amanda Andres.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that anybody would like to have removed? Okay, Councilmember Crable.
Thank you, Mayor. 7D is in David.
Councilmember.
7H.
Yeah, 7H. Okay, sounds good. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 7D and 7H?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Boland, second by Councilmember Ward. I'm going to go ahead and vote. We're doing.
And actually, Mayor, if it's okay, we'll just go ahead and do physical. We're having some difficulty with the
Oh,
online.
okay. Sounds good.
All right, Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The item passes. There are no nays to announce. And now in the order they were pulled, item 7D, Councilmember Crable.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to make two amendments to 7D as with regard to the Welcoming America Commission. I'd like to make those separately just so that if one has majority support and the other doesn't, then there can be separate votes on that. So the first one that I would move to amend is the section on membership, and to add the following language, which I've shared with you previously. The mayor shall strive to make appointments that are reflective of the diverse nature of our community, including those residents that are first-generation immigrants. The commission is also well served with community members who have backgrounds in advocating for immigrants. So that would be my motion to amend.
Okay, is this something that everybody had a chance to take a look at?
Yes, I emailed it to
Okay.
everyone.
Okay. So is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, this was my initiative, and I've been working on this for 2 years. I will say that the mayor should strive to make an appointment that reflects the diverse nature of this community. But Welcoming America really has to do with bringing the total community together, which means bringing the immigrants along with those residents that have been here a long time. So I do not I think that just saying the mayor shall strive to make appointments that are reflective of the diverse nature of our community is sufficient.
Anybody else? Do you have a response or?
No, I just, I thank Alderwoman Boland for her comments, but I'll stick with the current language for now.
Okay.
I
Anybody
didn't
else?
hear that.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say I appreciated your comments, but I'll stick with the current language now for the amendment.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Mayor, just procedurally, I think we probably need to get a motion on the table approving the ordinance or frame this as a motion to approve as amended.
Amended, okay.
So otherwise, we just kind of have a motion out there to modify this document.
Mhm.
So just procedurally, I would suggest maybe that we first have a motion to approve this and then take up the amendments to it if that's all right with the council. That makes sense.
Okay, is that okay with the
Sure,
maker of the
that's,
motion?
yeah, that's what you think we should do.
All right,
That's fine.
okay,
So I
so
would-
do you still want to make a motion to approve the original? And then after that, we'll make the motion for the amendment?
Right, yeah.
Right? Is
So
that what
so
you're
we're
talking about,
making-
Jeff? Okay.
Yeah, so just, yeah, we're making a motion to approve
Mhm,
the ordinance as presented.
mhm.
And then I will then make subsequent motions to amend that ordinance, correct?
Okay, that's
Okay,
good.
So
is that okay with you, Donna, second?
I don't understand the motion. Please
We're making the
rephrase.
motion to approve the original, just
Okay.
like it's presented, as presented, and then Councilmember Craybill will introduce his motion to amend.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And
so are you seconding, right?
Mayor, we actually had Councilmember Emig as the second.
Oh, sorry, okay, sorry.
Donna had just made discussion, so.
Okay, that's right, sorry. Is it okay with you, Councilmember Emig?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, want to go ahead and do a roll call, I guess?
Now the amendment will go.
Okay. And do I need to restate it for anyone? I think I'll just, okay, I'm sorry, make motion to amend. I'll,
Yeah, I thought we were doing a motion to approve the original, and then after that, we do a motion to amend.
So you make a motion to approve something which is as presented, but Councilmember Crable wants to amend what's presented.
Mhm.
So typically you would have first you would have the item on the table and then you would have amendments to it.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
okay, so we're not voting for the on the
Yeah, you're not
original.
voting for the original because
Mhm.
there's somebody that wants to make an amendment to it.
Okay,
So
Alright.
maybe what we do is take this back and have Councilmember Boland make the motion to approve as presented, get a
Mhm.
second, and then take up the amendments to it. If the amendment fails, then you take a vote on the as
original.
presented. Right.
Okay, all right,
Does that make sense?
I think it does.
All right.
Okay, so Councilmember Boland, do you want to make is that you want her to make a motion to approve
I will make a motion to approve as presented.
as presented? Okay, is there a second? Okay, second by Councilmember Becker. Okay, now, Councilmember Craybill, you want to make your motion to amend?
yes, I would make a motion to amend the section in the ordinance on membership that would read at the end, that would add to the end of that section. The mayor shall strive to make appointments that are reflective of the diverse nature of our community, including those residents that are first-generation immigrants. The commission is also well-served with community members who have backgrounds in advocating for immigrants.
Okay. Now, is there a second to that? Okay,
Second.
Councilmember Emig. Okay, so now we vote on the whole thing, on the proposed amendment. Okay. Proposed
Yeah, and
amendment.
I'm going to call it
Mhm,
this
yep,
way.
go
Okay. Councilmember Mappy,
Yes.
Councilmember Boland,
No.
Councilmember Motney,
No.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
No.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes,
Councilmember Crumpler.
No.
Okay. So what do we have here? Okay, sure. Then I'll vote no.
And then I have a second amendment, Mayor.
Sure, second amendment.
All right, thank you. My second amendment would be to add 2C duty and function to the 2C duty and function by inserting the following into section 2C between numbers 1 and 2, and that would read as a duty and function to establish benchmarks that community organizations, residents, and others can use to hold the city accountable to meet the requirements and indicators provided by Welcoming America through its welcoming standard.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Ward. Discussion? Okay, Councilmember Bolin.
Okay. First of all, corporate authority of the city and its commissions are not enforcers of an outcome. When we talk about benchmarks, what exactly are we talking about? I would rather propose that in section C1, where it states maintaining plans for the city's Welcoming America initiative, added in there after plans based on the standards. Nowhere in the Welcoming America material does it talk about benchmarks. On page 5 of the standard book, it talks about broad community support being critical for creating truly inclusive policies and programs and ensuring efforts are sustained into the long term. And on page 8, the welcoming standard will continue to evolve. Currently, it is being reviewed and updated. I don't understand, well, I don't agree with putting forward benchmarks. The standards basically say to engage long-term residents, set goals and monitor impact, and adjust strategies as needed. That's exactly what the commission is charged to do in the ordinance as written. Design programs and partnerships to increase access. Again, it's already written into the ordinance, and it's found in the materials that the commission will have to become familiar with. And collaboration is absolutely essential as one of the standards. Engaging everyone in the community. That is the value of the Welcoming America. It does not omit anyone. And the ultimate goal, the ideal situation, would be that anybody in this community would be able to pursue whatever they wish to do, regardless of background, age, any other descriptive. So I do not support the amendment at all.
Sounds good. Councilmember Matthew, and then Ward and.
Thank you. So here's the thing is that this amendment actually draws directly from the Welcoming America documents that they put out there. And I'm actually going to support this amendment specifically because the duties and functions as outlined in our packet say that this is to serve as an advisory board to the city. And unfortunately, there have been other advisory boards where the advisory board has been ignored by staff who found their recommendations inconvenient. I like the idea of having benchmarks if this is actually important to us, and this is something that we think is good for the future of the city. I have no problem getting benchmarks and having reports based on what not only the commission has done, but when the commission makes recommendations to the city, that those recommendations are actually a process for implementing those is created. That's just good governance to me. So I'm going to go ahead and support this amendment. Thank you.
Sure. And I'll give you a chance afterwards, Councilmember Bolin. So we have Councilmember Ward and then Councilmember Crumpler still.
Yeah, I'm also going to vote in favor of this amendment based on the very materials that the welcomingamerica.org puts forward. So I'll refer you to page 7, and I'll just read it since you might not have it in front of you or have it memorized. It says on page 7, purpose. The welcoming standard provides a comprehensive roadmap for places building more cohesive and equitable communities and fostering connections between newer immigrants and longtime residents. Quote, it also sets benchmarks that community organizations, residents, and others can use to hold welcoming places accountable and inspire continued innovation. If we don't hold ourselves accountable, we're not accountable. Why?
Councilmember Crumpler?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'd like to begin by saying the vagueness of the language in this amendment concerns me. I'm wondering who establishes these benchmarks. I read community organizations, residents, and others. I wonder who the others are that might be involved. When I listened to the presentation of the Welcoming America project by Councilwoman Boland back even before I was elected. And I've taken some time to look at the document, and to me, it looks like there are 4 core strategies that are listed and explicated in that document, including engaging long-term residents, setting goals and adjust strategies as needed, design for equity, and implement partnership. To me, who I believe in benchmarking, the second, setting goals and adjust strategies, signals ongoing evaluation. And at this time, I don't see a need for additional benchmarking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boland, and then Councilmember Montney.
Well, I just would like to say benchmarking needs to be defined. Using just a vague word like benchmark, perhaps the commission should be the one that puts forward their mission and decides how they want to evaluate what's going on. This is not a statutory commission like the Planning Commission. This is the same as beautification. This is the same as historic preservation. So I don't see the need to have benchmarks unless they are clearly defined, like 20% of the population is represented by X type of community. Therefore, every commission has to have 20% representation, even the elected commission or elected. Well, that's not how elections work.
Councilmember Montney and Councilmember Emy.
I just would like to acknowledge that I agree with Councilman Crumpler's observations. I was struggling to think about how you would establish measurements against a qualitative effort. And I haven't been able to find examples of what these metrics would be in a way that would make me feel comfortable voting for it. I think the document seems sufficient as it is, but I certainly, if people have ideas about what they think about when they think of metrics that we would place upon a qualitative group, I'd be interested to hear what that is. I wasn't able to find anything like that.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Emy.
So looking at the standards as printed, there's a rather elaborated series of pages that I think reads rather like a rubric. And I wonder if Council Member Crable would consider changing benchmarks to indicators, because that's the language that the welcoming city group uses, and rather it's about assessing, and a rubric is somewhat qualitative. These indicators are qualitative, but using some mechanism to guide and assess implementation using these indicators might give this commission a way to frame what they're doing and a way for us to talk about how and if they're achieving it. Would an indicator be a better phrase than a benchmark?
Councilmember Crable.
Potentially, I know that the standards document from Welcoming America does reference benchmarks. And there are listed requirements and indicators in that standard as well. But I'm certainly open to a change in the proposed language that I have. I'm just not sure how to formulate that change. Alderwoman Emig.
Sounds good. Let's see another light up. Councilmember Emig, were you trying to say
I think
something?
Becker.
Oh, was it? Okay. Go ahead. Councilmember Becker.
So I want to echo what Councilmember Montney and Crumpler said. Looking at the language, I think everybody is saying that the language is already there. Why add to it with something vague that, in my opinion, feels like an attempt to position for a future agenda rather than just allow the document that's stated, move forward as it's stated. It's something that's been voted on and agreed upon. I think we should implement it as is and see how we move forward before we start changing again with potential agendas in mind.
That's good. Councilmember Montney.
That's consistent with what I was going to say. I mean, this has been in flight for a long time, and to receive such a substantive last minute change just seems like something that would be imprudent for us to vote on when we aren't even commonly understanding what we mean when we say benchmark or indicator. So I think that's why I would say no to this amendment.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yeah, I will just like to go back to the fact that this commission, of course, first of all, we're starting from zero. Even Welcoming America doesn't give you directions on how to set up a commission. They just recommend that you do something that engages the community to help drive this. So this commission is going to have to do homework and learn and read the Welcoming America material. And we have a membership where they can reach out to the regional director and have actual meetings with her when necessary to give direction. I don't think that this council knows enough about Welcoming America to start making these kind of amendments to a general approval of Welcoming America initiative and network that we are going to follow. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. And this commission will then implement the standard that is found in the material that the Welcoming America Network provides. I do not support this amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Matthew and then Councilmember Ward.
So a couple of thoughts. One, the document we have does not say anything anywhere in it that there's any benchmarks or metrics anywhere as part of this. And two, I think, is that everybody's agreeing with everything you just said, Donna. We are on the same page. We just want, I mean, specifically, the way that I read Councilmember Craybill's amendment is that we want the commission to come up with the benchmarks. We want the people who are on the commission, who are doing the work, who are in the trenches learning this and part of the network and reading everything. Those are the people we would like to come up with the benchmarks. Welcoming America created and has the welcoming standard document that has a series of, if you call them indicators, the benchmarks could be how many indicators have we achieved in each of the 4 category areas. So it's outlined in there with a series of indicators to use, the things to consider and think about and use to see where you are. What progress have you made? Where did you start and where are you going? Which things are important? Which ones are you going to define as, we obviously on day one, no organization can jump from 0 to 100. But how do we know we've made progress unless we have said, this year we're going to try to achieve these things. And if you don't measure it, how do you know that you have actually made any success moving towards, these various indicators that are outlined in the welcoming standards document? So we're not creating anything new. We're saying we want the group that we're creating with this document, we want them to have the ability to actually make change. The entire point of this initiative is to change how the city of Bloomington works and interacts with everybody that lives in the community, to make everybody feel welcome, no matter where you come from. If you were born in the cornfields of Central Illinois, like I was, or if you come from another country, right? And so everybody is agreeing that this is important. And I think that all I'm seeing with this initiative is to say, let's measure it. Let's see where we're going. Let's make progress. Let's not create another commission that doesn't actually serve a purpose. Let's take this one serves such an important purpose. Let's take this and move it forward and say, this is so important. We want you to bring back reports to us to say, how are we doing? Are we making changes? Are we achieving the goals that we've outlined when we set this up? I think that's where I'm reading this in there. And if it's otherwise, everything that we created with the 4 duties that are listed here, those read as incredibly vague to me. They don't say anything other than you're going to monitor some demographic data. Then what? What's after that, right? But if we say we want you to create a series of benchmarks to move towards these indicators that are outlined in the welcoming standard, that gives them purpose and motivation to move forward. There's a list that's already been created by somebody else, not by us, that the commission can then choose to which ones are important to them, what order to attack them and implement them, and where to go from there. So that's how I see it. I don't see it as undermining anything. I don't see it as vague. They're defined in that document that Councilmember Craybill did. There's an entire series of indicators there. It's not vague. It's literally listed out in order.
Okay. Councilmember Ward, you had your light up before.
I wonder if we would tolerate replacing the word benchmark in the amendment with report card. It seems like report cards are something most of us can agree on as being useful things. And if we're setting goals for ourselves, it seems like we ought to be able to have some kind of a measurement of that goal.
Can I?
Are you asking if I, okay.
Sure.
Yeah,
Did you-
certainly,
did-
I would
did you-
agree with that change, if the seconder agrees as well.
The seconder was Councilmember Emig.
Yeah, I was going to suggest framework instead of benchmarks, but report card is fine.
Councilmember Boland.
Mayor,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm looking over this amendment and I've
Fine.
listened to what everyone has to say. I prefer the word indicator. Julie, I think that's a very good word. But I still have trouble with the comment, hold the city accountable. Again, this is kind of a bottom up. It is the community as a whole that is going to be reaching out and providing this welcoming atmosphere. So who is it that you're going to hold accountable? Joe Schmo on the street? And, instead of the elected have no control of how to make this community welcoming other than on an individual basis. So if letter C2 begins with to establish indicators that community organizations, residents, and others can use to meet the standards of welcoming America. With that,
Could you
Sure.
clarify how an indicator is used to help you meet something?
Can you speak a little
you talk in
louder
the
into the
microphone?
Yeah,
microphone?
I just need a clarification of how you use an indicator to help you meet something. I would imagine an indicator to help you measure something, but I don't understand how an indicator helps you to meet a standard.
Okay. Can you hold on for a second before you respond to that? We need more time, is that?
No, there's actually no timing associated to consent, so we're okay on that. But just want to clarify that the first for this amendment is Crable, and the secondary is actually Ward, not
Ward.
EMIG.
Oh,
EMIG
sorry.
was on the
Okay.
first amendment, so I
Okay.
just want to clarify that. And then when we get through this, I need to read nays for the first amendment because we skipped over that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I feel like, we have a very specific process that we follow in establishing something that's going to become a part of an expectation for this community. And, it sounds like there was, perhaps a growing knowledge and conversations that I guess I'm not grounded in. I'm feeling a bit caught off guard with what we're really talking about in this amendment. And, perhaps if someone could share what type of metrics are we talking about? And the second part of that question is this something that, since we're talking about in addition to the language that it sounds like everybody has already been comfortable with, could we zero in on this part and, maybe deal with it separately, just so we can kind of get unstuck with this? I can't get my head around what metrics we would establish for a group and an accountability framework towards something that is, by its very nature, qualitative. Just, it seems in conflict to me. But if there are examples that other council members have to talk about specifically that just hasn't been provided to us, perhaps that would help.
Okay. I know we're starting to wordsmith here, which is always what worries me when we do it on the floor. And my preference generally, when we get to this point, is that maybe it's better to go back to the drawing board. At some point, maybe let Jeff, work with that and see if there's something else that we could do, down the line at some other point. But I'm not sure that we'll be able to achieve some sort of resolution that most are satisfied with. That's
Well,
just
I would
my-
be happy to go back to the drawing board as far as this. I'm really disappointed that this material was available. And Alderman Craybill had the entire weekend to reach out and discuss this with me, since it was my initiative, and he failed to do so. And then it's brought forward this morning through an email and then have to be discussed on the floor. I think it should go back. This amendment should be tabled or some such thing and go back and have the wording worked on by Jeff Jurgens, based on the conversation we've had here tonight.
Councilmember Ward, I know you wanted to speak.
I just wanted to offer one more option: to establish indicators that will allow the city to measure how well the community is meeting the Welcoming America standard.
Well, I think Jeff will take note of that, right? Yeah. Okay, good. 'Cause like I said, we're having several different options here, and I don't know that it's done. Mhm. Mhm. Right.
So we're not voting on specific wording right now?
Well, I think
Well, I
we're,
didn't hear the wording.
Use your mic.
Sorry, unless the maker of the motion and Councilmember Ward is the seconder, unless you want to change it to that most recent language that you just read, which.
Yes, I would agree with Alderwoman Ward's suggested changes.
okay. So can you repeat that then for everyone to hear so they know what
Certainly.
they're voting on?
To establish indicators that will allow the city to measure how well the community is meeting the Welcoming America standard.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Is everyone ready to vote on that one?
I have a clarification.
Okay.
Sort of responding to Councilmember Matthey, are we assuming then that the commission itself is going to establish these indicators, or is there some other group?
So, sorry, I'll jump in here only because
Well-
the rewording of this is part of the function of the commission. This
Okay,
falls in the section under the function of the commission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Montney.
So is what is being referred to here the GL1 to GL7 requirements and indicators? Is that what the folks who came tonight to advocate for this are referring to? WelcomingAmerica.org, page 13 of the government leadership requirements?
Yes, that is part of it, because, I mean, the things, the amendment said, allow the organization, the commission, to develop their own benchmarks. If they want to use page 13, if they want to use page 15, 16, if they want to use 1 through 39, allow them to define their own benchmarks, not us to define the benchmarks. Allow the people appointed to the commission to define their benchmarks so we can see where we are and where we've been, where we're going.
Okay. So if I could, just to, make this abstract conversation a little bit more concrete, an example of an indicator would be the unit is formalized, active, and has dedicated staff. So we're talking about using these indicators as a suite of metrics to hold ourselves accountable. It seems to me, now that I'm seeing the actual document, that it would be unnecessary and redundant to state that we would use the information that's in the program. I also feel in reading these that they truly aren't about accountability metrics. These are just, suggestions of things to do, again, that are more qualitative. For example, we provide information on licensing and starting businesses. I mean, when I think about just the layering on of administrative work to leverage these, I'm not sure to what end or how it would go about helping us further the actual merit of this organization and the language and the dialogue that I listened to in the prior council meetings before I joined it.
Okay,
I'll call the question.
okay, all right. Let's go ahead and vote.
Before we take a vote, could you read what the wording is? Because I couldn't hear anything.
Okay,
Yes, so the motion on the floor is to amend section 2C, which is duty and function, adding the language to establish indicators that will allow the city to measure how well the community is meeting the standard.
Thank you.
okay. Would you go ahead and call the roll?
All right, Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
No.
Councilmember Motney,
No.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
No.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
So I think it passes, right?
It does. It passes 5-3.
Okay, can you read the nays?
And to read the nays, Councilmember Bolin, Councilmember Motney, and Councilmember Becker.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda
Do
is.
we-
Mayor, sorry. I was just gonna say really quickly, if I could go back to the first amendment
Oh,
and
that's
read the
right. Sorry.
nays for
Go
that
ahead,
one. That was the one that you were the decider on. So those nays were Councilmember Bolin, Councilmember Motney, Councilmember Becker, Councilmember Crumpler, and then Mayor Millawamble.
Okay,
It-
thank you.
All right, Mayor, now the motion is on the floor to approve the ordinance as amended. So
Okay.
that would be the next action item.
That's right.
I move that we approve it as amended.
Okay.
there's already the motion on there, so you're
Right.
good.
Okay, so we're just calling to vote now.
To approve as amended.
As amended.
With the amendment.
Yep. And just as a reminder, that was Councilmember Bolin with the seconder being Councilmember Becker.
Mhm.
And it was originally as presented, if that's okay to do amended.
Okay,
So I think that
So
then
we
we
need-
would lose our second. He's okay.
Just call the roll. Yeah, it was, the amendment was made and approved. So now it's just goes back to the original, to that motion. So you're good to just call the roll.
okay.
Did-
So a motion was made to approve and seconded. The motion, there were two amendments to the motion. One failed and one was approved. So now, under our rules, the motion goes forward as amended for a final vote.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
I think it does, but I know Nick is not happy with that. Okay. Okay.
So as amended, Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Abstain.
Councilmember Motney,
I don't know what I'm voting on. And, again, I realize that we have process, but if the folks who originally made this motion and second this motion do not agree and with the amendment, then I'm not understanding how that motion would continue to be what carries us into this discussion. It would seem like we would be starting fresh.
Yes, again, so under our rules, you can amend a motion. So a motion was made to approve the ordinance as presented.
Mhm.
A motion was then made to amend that to add the language to the commission makeup. That was defeated. A motion was then made to add the language to the functions. That motion passed. So then what comes forward, so the motion has changed from when it was originally made to, you don't have to remake another motion. The motion has just changed.
Mhm.
So now the motion and what's voted on before the council is the approval of the ordinance, but with that new D2 language in there.
Mhm.
So the motion from the time of presenting and seconding through the process has changed. And so now what's before the council is the approval of the commission as originally presented, but with that amendment to add the language under D2. So if you vote yes, you're approving the ordinance with that change. If you vote no, then you're voting against the ordinance.
So if uncomfortable with it,
Yes,
just vote no.
yeah, you can vote no. So the
Mhm.
seconder can vote no in this situation. But that's what's in front of the council is that ordinance with the change.
So go ahead, Councilmember Motney.
Okay,
Your
and
vote.
the language is that we're going to use these measures that we haven't spoken of, and that's what I'm saying yes to.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll be in, yes, the ordinance now includes that language. The ordinance on the table includes the language that Councilmember Ward and Councilmember Crable discussed with the change to the with the indicators instead of benchmarks.
I suppose the most responsible thing for me to do would be to also abstain, because I'm not really sure how this all has come about, and I'm not sure what I'm agreeing to create work for city staff and for a future commission for. So I will just abstain.
Okay, that's good.
Councilmember Emig, can you put your mic on? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
What is, I think that we can get to language that works. would Councilmember Crable and Councilmember Ward well.
Well,
we're
I think
moving
we
along
should,
too
just
fast.
vote on the motion right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll vote yes.
okay.
Councilmember Becker,
No.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler,
Yes.
Okay. Can you go ahead and read the nays and?
Yeah,
abstains?
so we have 5-1 ayes. So there was one nay being Becker, Councilmember Becker, sorry, and 2 abstain, Councilmember Bolin and Councilmember Motney.
Okay.
And to complicate this further, as we remember from previous meetings, an ordinance requires a concurrence of a majority of the aldermen, which is 5.
Mhm.
So I think you said there were 4 voting in favor.
No, we have 5.
Oh, we have.
Yeah,
five.
we have
Oh, There you
5.
go. Never
Mhm.
mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, on to 7H now,
Yes.
right? Okay. And I know Councilmember Matthew pulled that item.
Mayor, I'm a member of Sunrise Rotary, so I just need to recuse myself
Okay.
from this vote.
Yeah, can you step out real quick? Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, could you go ahead and,
And so we'll
Oh,
just
yeah,
need
the
a
motion,
yep,
yes.
motion and second.
is there a motion and a second? To approve the item 7H?
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, Councilmember Motney.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Emig. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
All right, Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney. Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker. Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The item passes. And next item on the agenda is item. Oops, sorry. Yes, item 8A, a consideration and action on a resolution in support of increasing the percentage of funding available through the Harriet Fuller Rust Grant Program for projects that enhance building accessibility as requested by Councilmember Ward. Go ahead, Councilmember.
Mayor, ironically, I need to recuse myself on this one as well. I do not own any property in downtown, but there's a possibility that the gentleman that owns the building my business is in might need to apply for this, and I don't want there to be any appearance of impropriety, so I'm going to recuse myself from this one as well.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, I have a similar
Similar?
situation with the
Okay.
museum.
All right, so do you want to go ahead and recuse yourself then, step outside for a couple minutes? Or for however long it takes. Okay, Councilmember Ward, since this was your initiative, I'll give you a chance to.
Yeah, I
speak
don't
to it.
have a whole lot of new to say about this. It seemed like this was something that we were supportive of back in May when I first proposed it. The idea is to raise the amount of the percentage that the city would provide for Rust Fund grants from 50% to 75%. It does not call on the city to spend any more money. The money that we've allocated for the Rust Fund grants, by my understanding, is what it is. We would need to make decisions on that moving forward. This would simply say that people could be reimbursed for up to 75% of their costs. And the other portion of this has to do with marketing the program to make it more, to increase awareness of the program. Currently, it's had very little use, if any, and some folks have said that's because they aren't familiar with it, they aren't aware of it, and so this would help to increase that awareness. So I would move that we would accept the resolution as
proposed.
Okay. Is there a second before I allow discussion? And I think City Manager Gleason also has some comments he'd like to make.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Crumpler. And City Manager Gleason, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think this is step 3 of Alderwoman Ward's council initiative. This has been something that's been discussed at the historic preservation, historic preservation in the past. Billy, I think you have 2 slides to discuss.
Thank you, Senior Manager Gleason. Phil, if you'll put the slides up, I'll be brief, I promise. So I part of what we've been doing is actually looking into the Harriet Fuller Russ grant and looking at what it is and what it's not and what it's allowed to, how we're allowed to utilize it. Really quickly, we thought, first of all, because there's been so much discussion, it's named for Harriet Fuller Rust for her significant contributions to this community. She was a historian. She worked with preservation and preservationists. And so the grant is named after her. And I think an important bullet here is that this program at its core is a facade program to encourage private investment to improve, as you can read, building appearance, safety, structure, integrity. But there are also some allowances in line with what you want to do that we believe will allow us to move forward with supporting accessibility. Key point is the bottom as well. It's a grant that is administered by the Historic Preservation Commission, and it's been run by them since 2000 when the grant was created. And one of the things I failed to mention is we have Melissa Hahn and Kimberly Smith here. Melissa, as you know, is the Director of Economic and Community Development, and Kimberly is the Assistant Director, and they are really more of the experts in this than I am. And so I'm going to rely on them if there are questions here. Next slide, please. Thank you. One of the things that the previous slide mentioned is that it is a targeted grant, meaning that it is targeted to properties, commercial properties in the targeted area there. So I thought it was important that we show the public that it's not a citywide program. It's one that's targeted to downtown. I know all of you know that, but I wanted to make sure that the public was aware of that. Next slide, please. We've talked about usage, and there have been questions about usage and how it is actually funded. As you all know, as Councilmember Ward mentioned, it's a program that the city funds, and we fund it out of the general fund. There was a question about whether it was an endowment, and it is not. And if you look at annual expenditures over the last several years, that's what it's been. And so as you can see, depending upon the year, the totals have been higher and or lower, depending upon what projects we had. So I think it was important to show what the actual usage has been. And this year in particular, there has been roughly $51,000 either spent or encumbered for projects. And there's also a remaining roughly $83,000 that's still available for work to happen this year. Next slide, please. The current program, as you can see, it funds grants of up to 50% of the total cost for qualified work, maximum amount of $25,000. You can go up to $50,000 if the building is in extreme and dangerous state of disrepair. Important to note that, again, most of the work that is allowable is for facade and related work. However, there are allowances for other things depending upon how bad of shape the building is in. Next slide, please. Again, eligible improvements to be funded through this program. And as you can see, facade work, brick cleaning, tuck pointing, non-facade work, as I said, when the building is in a serious state of disrepair. I bolded the last item. We bolded the last item because what we've talked about is accessibility. And this program was amended in the fall of 2020 to allow for permanent exterior accommodations to enhance ingress and egress accessibility. And that, in our opinion, is in line with what we've talked about. And so we believe that this allows for what we've talked about. Next slide, please. So tonight, what you're considering is supporting the commission making an amendment to provide up to 75% versus the 50% of the cost of accessibility work related to ingress and egress. And that can be any number of different things. It could be widening of doors. It could be addressing of slopes. It could be, again, any number of different things. in my conversation with commission leadership, the suggestion is, as they consider this, is that it be a one-time incentive versus the current allowance of people can apply for this type of grant multiple times. Again, you talked about marketing and outreach. We now have on board a communications and external affairs manager, and we would have the commission to work with her in providing and creating an outreach plan. The other thing with this is, as you saw, that this is a targeted program. So while we want to promote awareness of the program citywide, it becomes a little easier here, in my opinion, because we can do direct mailings to building owners within the targeted area, so that we're getting to them directly so that they know that this program is available and what it can be used for. The other thing that we've talked about is other assistance, perhaps in lowering the 25%. I don't know that most people know that this targeted area is in the enterprise zone, and properties in the enterprise zone can receive an exemption on sales tax on materials. And so when you're doing a project like this, a large part of the cost is going to be in the form of materials. And so there are options available where property owners could simply apply for that exemption and realize savings as well as it relates to sales taxes on construction materials. One of the things that in talking with commission leadership is there's always been a thought that there should be, I won't say has to be, there should be some level of owner investment. And so eliminating the entirety of the 25%, it's up to you, obviously, in recommending that, but it's always been the thought that there should be some level of owner investment. And so with that, we'll take any questions that you may have.
Sure. Questions? Okay,
Do we-
Councilmember Becker.
Thank you. Just to be clear, is the maximum amount changing or just percentage?
That was the other thing that we had talked about recommending, is also increasing the maximum amount from $25,000 to $50,000 for accessibility related work.
But
The
what's
current-
on the table today?
I'm sorry.
What is on the table today? Is it just the percentage or is it the amount?
It would be the percentage and the amount. I failed to mention that. I apologize.
So what is the new amount?
$50,000 for accessibility related work.
And do we have estimates on what these type of projects are costing? I'm not saying that in any way that I'm against any of the use for ADA. That's not the purpose of the question. But if we have 150,000 in budget and the average project costs 200,000 and you're saying 75, you're limiting the number of people that can, you're going to say only 2 people can do this year instead of 4 if you change that contribution. So it's not just about the amount of money, it's how are these projects going to happen and what's the appropriate dollar amount that people are spending for these projects.
Absolutely. I understand the question completely. And my answer would be, it depends on the project. So for example, if you are widening a doorway, maybe the cost, it's a $20,000 project potentially, versus if you're widening a door and increasing the size of the area where when you come in the door where you can turn a wheelchair, et cetera, it's going to vary. And so you're exactly right on your question. If you're increasing the amount, you could in theory be limiting what's available, but it's going to be dependent upon the project.
That's it? Okay. Other questions? Councilmember Boland?
Oh, well, yeah, I just have some clarification where it says this would be a one-time grant allowance and would not count toward current grant maximums. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
One of the things that we've put forth with this, and it's up to you, obviously, is if the desire is to increase what's available for accessibility related projects, then recommending to the commission that those costs not count towards the $25,000 maximums that are already listed as part of this program. So for example, if that language is approved, then if someone, just for argument's sake, wanted to do a widening of a door, then if that language is approved, then that amount would not count towards the maximums that already exist as part of this program.
I guess that's why I'm confused. Well, what confuses me the most is would not count toward current grant maximum. So I'm trying to understand if a property owner is committed to doing ADA improvements and he gets the 75% award, would he also then qualify for facade for the same building in the same year?
That's what that language means. And it's saying that if, so you have a project that's $50,000, just for discussion's sake. And $30,000, the project, for $30,000 of the cost of the project is for facade work. And $20,000 of that work is for adding a wider door, for accessibility related work. Then what that language is saying is that the $20,000 in work, the percentage that they get as a grant of that $20,000 would not count towards the maximum amount of the grant, which in this case is a $25,000 cap. The current grant maximum is $25,000.
Right.
What we're saying is that if you're funding accessibility work, whatever you get as a grant to pay for accessibility work does not count towards that $25,000 grant.
So
Cap.
basically, someone could end up qualifying for two grants, the accessibility grant and a facade grant in 1 year.
Right, because it's all part of the same program. However, if the desire was to provide more towards accessibility, that was the reason for that language. You
Oh,
don't have to do that.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, I understand the principle and I'm in favor of, improving the ADA. It's of course law and required. But if, again, it goes back to Nick's question about there's X amount of money. Perhaps the person does the ADA and allows someone else to do facade. I don't know how complicated that would become, but if you qualify for a RUST grant, regardless of what it is, in that one given year, then you would have to wait till the next year to apply for the second grant. Do you see where I'm coming from that? I would like to be able to have as many individuals benefit rather than just one person in a given year. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, I know we had a couple here, Councilmember Ward, Craybill, and then I know Councilmember Martin and Crumpler.
I think the purpose, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the ADA portion not counting toward the overall cap is really to encourage people to focus on ADA and not have to choose between ADA and the rest of the facade, but really to incentivize going ahead with ADA accessibility. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was the purpose of that language.
And then I guess from my perspective, I would much rather see one person get a larger grant and actually do something with it in a given year. And the other person then have to wait until next year and have enough money to do something than to have neither one of them apply because the amount is so small that it's not going to cover what they can do or what they need to do.
Councilmember Craybill.
Thank you, Mayor. Billy, has anyone applied to use the funds for ADA compliance?
I'm gonna lean on Kimberly, or they're nodding their heads. No.
And so I think that's the purpose of increasing the percentage the city pays as well as the amount specifically for accessibility, because we want to encourage people to apply for the program and use those funds to make our downtown more accessible. If you keep the current amounts, you're going to keep the current results, and these places aren't going to become accessible. And we've got a problem downtown with accessibility. If you talk to disability advocates, it's an issue, and we can do something about it with funds that we already have that are already approved to use for disability. And if we can incentivize that, I think we should.
Thank you, Councilmember Montney, and then Crumpler.
I just was wondering, can you refresh my mind on how much the total, because this is not like an endowment. I mean, this is actually budgeted funds.
That is correct. And the annual budget is $125,000. And there's currently in this year's remaining budget, roughly $81,000.
So I guess I would just offer that we're effectively increasing the potential opportunity for one applicant to qualify for 75,000 of that 125,000, right? Because you could qualify for the 50,000, and then since it doesn't negate you from qualifying for the 25,000, you could qualify for that as well.
That language, according to that language, that is correct.
Okay. And then furthermore, currently, I think the type of assistance on the website also offers an amount for a singular applicant of up to 50,000 if there is an extreme situation. So, I mean, essentially, I'm just offering up that, and I'm not buying or selling one way or another. I'm just offering this up for discussion that you could create a scenario here where you're only able to help one business per year, or perhaps two, depending upon the application process and the opportunity to kind of stack these various options. So I just offer that. I think that was the point that Councilmember Becker was making earlier, and I understand his point. Thank you.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe since 2014, 2015, the city of Bloomington has had a plan in draft form, an accessibility plan, I believe, that has never really been moved forward. And I appreciate Ms. Urban's comments about her business this evening. And I really want to support this. To me, 31 years ago, right, the American Disabilities Act was enacted. And it seems to me that it's time that the city really took a good look at what we can do. It looks like there's no impact on existing budget. No additional funding is required from the city at this point. And to Councilmember Becker's point, I assume that these grants are competitive. So if Councilmember Becker puts forth a plan, and I put forth a plan, and the criteria are applied, and it's determined that his is a better plan that's more realistic, that I would assume that one would be funded. And to me, to try to make a difference in the accessibility of downtown Bloomington is a project that we ought to really move forward on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Just a quick
Craven.
question. So I saw on that chart that like in past years, we had not given out grants that equaled our annual contribution. Was that right?
Sorry, correct.
So do we have like a balance beyond just the yearly total?
Melissa and/or Kimberly, that balance was the 81,000-ish, correct? So there's roughly $81,000.
The balance.
And the balance that's currently available, and that is from what is left this year. Were you able to hear that?
I think so. So we have overall, we have an $81,000 balance.
Correct.
Plus the 125,000 a year annual.
That it rolls over, correct? Okay, so it doesn't roll over. So there's an $81,000 balance, and next year there will be another $125,000 allocated. That's already happened for this year.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion by Councilmember Ward and then a second.
Just one comment to make sure Jeff's point was clear. It does not roll over. So if that 81,000, it was 83 on the slide, but if that number was not used this year, that goes away and you start fresh with 125. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
So just making it clear.
And Mayor, thank you. And Mayor, can I be clear as well?
Sure.
Your action tonight, because the Historic Preservation Commission administers this program, what you're authorizing us to do is to go to them and work with them to do this.
Okay.
And they would put it on an agenda and have a conversation about it, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Sounds good. So we had a motion by Councilmember Ward, and who was the second? Was it Councilmember Crumpler? Okay, sounds good. So Madam Clerk, would you go ahead and call the roll?
All right, Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward, Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes. Could somebody bring in Councilmember Emig and Councilmember Matthey? Okay, welcome back. Next item on the agenda is city manager's discussion. City Manager Gleason.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think I said the deputy city manager had 2 slides. I should have said they were blue slides or a few slides. So my mistake. We still have the downtown farmers market. It's been very well attended this summer. And Melissa's team, Catherine and Samantha, have done an excellent job. Next slide, please. Trick or treat downtown, October 29th, and you can find additional information on our website. I think we've got placards around the city facilities as well. Next slide. Give thanks, shop small, and that's November 5th. And we're coming up on the holiday season where that will be promoted through Thanksgiving through Christmas as well. I think that's the end of my slides. And I've got a couple of additional comments related to some past conversations. The IDA Single Family Rehabilitation Grant will be stood up tomorrow. And we'll be providing in-person assistance at the hub, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And William Bessler is the grants coordinator. And I guess, we've got a press release out on this, but this is something that I want to recognize the Deputy City Manager, Melissa Hahn, the Economic Community Development Director, and many others. Standing this up for the sake of the residents. There was a fair amount of staff work to do this. So I wanted to say thank you to them. Bulk waste, going to share that an October 11th update. As of today, we're halfway through. We're finding that there is more out this season, which is fine. But it's slowed us down a little bit, but we're through 5 zones, 5 remaining zones, and more information can be found on the city's website. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And the mayor's discussion, just want to mention what is obvious is that the search for Ward 6 continues. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I participated in a couple of events this past week. The announcement of the Pitrick Idea Center, which will serve as the innovation hub at Illinois Wesleyan University. So which will be a very good development for us. And I'm looking forward to, all the great ideas that could come out of students and faculty at Wesleyan and other partners in the city. The other event that I attended was this Saturday, the Fully Free campaign, which is meant to help educate the community regarding the obstacles facing those who have been incarcerated and paid their debt to society. And many of those obstacles center around education, housing, and employment. And it was a very good event, very eye-opening to hear from people who had been in prison and now have, are even homeowners, but who are still struggling, finding obstacles in terms of finding jobs and being able to educate themselves, and as well as um, housing is also an issue. So definitely something that calls on all of us in the community to look out for those individuals. And the group itself is working on an initiative to put forth a lot of those a lot of the laws that get in the way. One gentleman talked about the fact that he is the only next of kin to his father who passed away, but because of the laws, he cannot be an executor of his estate. And so that's definitely one thing that's been on his mind that has been very difficult to deal with. I want to remind everyone that next week we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony for Ferrero's chocolate, which will be a very exciting event for the manufacturing factory. It is the only one in North America. And I'm thankful for a very significant investment in our community, $75 million and creation of up to 50 jobs. So I'm looking forward to being able to tour the facility next week. And with that, I will turn it over to council members for council member comments. Councilmember Crable.
Thank you, Mayor. So I don't see that we've done anything to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. Is that right? Is there anything planned?
We don't have anything. I mean, I think it was Councilmember Carrillo's initiative, and so we haven't seen anything come forward. So.
Okay. So I just wanted to, if we could, I was just kind of looking at things, and this was passed, the Indigenous People Day was passed back in January. We were to add to chapter 22.2 under the Human Relations Commission a section to promote and sponsor annual observance in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day on the second Monday of October, which may be held in conjunction or partnership with one or more other observations or organizations, and to solicit community and corporate sponsorships to assist in funding the celebration and or event. That has not been added to the code yet. I looked at the code today. Secondly, so this is something that is put on by the Human Relations Commission, similar to Juneteenth. And we all remember those events. And as far as, and I, in speaking with the Human Relations Commission Chair, that's not something that's been on their radar for Indigenous Peoples Day. So if we could make sure that's something that that happens next year.
Sure.
And then if I could, I just would, since we don't have a proclamation or celebration there, just kind of read from the ordinance that we had in January. City wishes to celebrate the strength and resilience of Indigenous people who have fought for survival, often in the face of dehumanizing treatment, and to publicly express the community's gratitude for the many contributions made through Indigenous people's knowledge, labor, spirituality, technology, science, philosophy, and arts, and the deep cultural contribution that substantially shaped the character of Bloomington. To honor the Indigenous people is to acknowledge the value of diversity in our community and the city of Bloomington as an organization. While the city of Bloomington has previously recognized Indigenous Peoples Day through proclamation, the city desires to have this day formally recognized in a more institutional way by having the city's Human Relations Commission, in partnership with other community organizations, sponsor an annual observance honor around the second Monday in October. And just to do a quick land acknowledgement, and this is basically taken from the Bloomington Public Library's website. We acknowledge that the city of Bloomington was built on the unceded ancestral homeland of many Native tribes, including the Kickapoo, the Algonquin language group, who were forced to move west of the Mississippi, as well as Peoria, Kaskaskia, Oglala, Sioux, and Miami Nation, among others that history has erased. We recognize with heavy hearts the truth of the genocide, displacement, and continued injustices perpetuated by non-Native settlers and the United States government upon all Native tribes. We honor with gratitude the indigenous peoples, both past and present, who show us through their strength and resilience our great responsibilities as stewards of the land. I encourage you to learn about the rich histories, vibrant communities, and cultures of the indigenous people and their ancestors who have lived in what is now named Bloomington, Illinois, for thousands of generations. And you can find more information on the city or the Bloomington Public Library's website. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Crable. Councilmember Crumpler and Matthew.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jeff, for that. You're a hard act to follow. I just have a small thing. I would like just to publicly acknowledge Joe Blaney, his appointment to the Transportation Commission. I met Joe when I was campaigning in Ward 9. He's a resident of my ward. And it was clear to me at that time, he's very thoughtful and cares about his city. He asked me lots of great questions about why I wanted this job and what I thought I might accomplish. And he indicated at that time his interest in serving in the area of transportation. I'd like to thank him for his willingness to serve.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward.
Yes, can you hear me down there? Okay, good. I just want to acknowledge that in addition to being Indigenous Peoples Day, today is also National Coming Out Day. And I would like to acknowledge all those who have shown the courage and the bravery to come out as LGBTQ plus members, and all those who continue to suffer under the homophobia that continues to infiltrate many, many, many layers of our society and keeps them from being able to safely come out. And I would just like to say that that I am grateful beyond words for the people in my life who have been a model to me and my kids and my family, especially and including my daughter's godfathers, Richard and Peter. I love you guys and I'm proud of you and I'm thankful beyond words for all that you give to the world, for simply being you. And if you are a person who needs a safe person to be you with, I'm here. Just reach out.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthew.
Well, that's also a hard act to follow. I was just going to say, because I've gotten a ton of questions recently that yes, trick or treating is happening this year on Halloween from 5 to 8 p.m. It's a Sunday, obviously, but I just wanted to make sure the police had posted it officially a few days ago. But just so everybody knows, trick or treating is happening, because I've gotten probably 6 questions in the last 3 days on that. So.
Yes, thank you. And let me correct, Ferrero is actually this Wednesday. Okay, sorry. I was thinking next week for some reason, but it's next week, I think, is O'Neill Pool, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, good. Thank you for the correction. Oh, Councilmember Bolin, sorry.
Yes, you are correct. Ferraro is Wednesday, the 13th. I'm going to walk there from my home and I'm going to enjoy smelling the chocolate for the rest of the time I live there. And I also would like to remind everyone that the mental health virtual forum is still going on Tuesdays at noon until November 9th. So if you have an opportunity to jump on the website at McLeanCountyIll.gov, I think it would be beneficial. And I also would like to make some comments regarding the Ward 6 appointment. The media reports regarding that appointment are factually incorrect. No applicant received 5 or more votes. The code allows for 60 days for an appointment. No one is delaying anything. The appointment is entirely the mayor's prerogative. And the ward represents their constituents, but also makes decisions that affect the entire community. I just wanted to make those facts clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to ask for a motion to move into executive session per section 2 of C12 and C2 of 5 ILCS 120 to discuss a claim settlement and collective bargaining matters. Is
I'll
there-
make that motion.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Bolin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
By Councilmember Becker. Madam Clerk,
It was Crumpler. Okay, I just want to make sure. I was looking down, so I apologize.
that's okay.
And we can call the roll. Councilmember Matthew,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Motney,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Becker,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Crumpler.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, council is entering executive session for session. Council will resume the open session meeting following executive session. No additional action will be taken except to adjourn regular session. Thank you.